Hello, Minecraft Traveler. Welcome back to the cabin. Or, if this is your first time, I'm glad you found your way here. The fire is warm, the lantern is lit, and the night has grown quiet. Tonight's story comes from my own journal, the first of many entries I've written since I started hearing things. If you're ready to relax, to unwind, or to drift gently into sleep, then settle in. Subscribe and comment on what cabin confession you want to listen to. Take a deep breath and listen closely. The world has been waiting for this one. If you're hearing this, it means the fire is still burning. I never thought I'd need to keep record of what's been happening out here, but something's changed. This cabin, my quiet place, tucked between the spruce trees and the frozen river, isn't silent anymore. Last night, I heard footsteps. Now before you roll your eyes or think this is some overwrought bedtime story, let me be clear. I live alone. My world is a private seed. No friends, no realms. Just me, the forest, and time. I built this cabin with my own hands. Placed every log, lit every lantern. There's no one else. But at exactly 3:12 a.m., I checked the in-game clock. I heard slow, deliberate footsteps on the floorboards above my head. My bed is on the lower level. The upstairs loft is empty, just storage chests and an old painting I found in an abandoned village. The steps were soft at first, then they stopped, and then they started again, one after the other. Like whatever was up there was pacing. I didn't move, just stared at the ceiling, my back pressed into the red wool of the bed, listening, trying to remember if I'd left any mobs turned on. I hadn't. The world was on peaceful, and yet the steps continued. I reached for my sword, the enchanted one I keep in the item frame above the headboard. It was instinct, really. I hadn't had to use it in weeks. No mobs, no visitors, no reason. Still, my fingers wrapped around the hilt, and I waited. The fire crackled once, just once, then silence. The footsteps stopped as suddenly as they began. I counted slowly in my head. 10 seconds. 20. A full minute. Nothing. I finally stood up, climbed the ladder. My torch flickered against the walls of the loft as I peeked over the edge. The room was just as I'd left it, barrels in the corner, an unlit lantern on the beam, dust motes drifting through the warm glow. Everything. Normal. Except for one thing. The painting, the one with the shadowy figure and the moon behind it, it had fallen. Flat on the floor. Not broken. Just placed. As if someone had gently taken it off the wall and laid it down. My first thought? Maybe it had glitched. Maybe the block behind it despawned or the update did something strange. But when I crouched to pick it up, I saw something underneath it. A single redstone torch. I didn't place it. Now, that might not mean much to someone who hasn't played Minecraft as long as I have, but let me tell you something about redstone torches. They don't generate naturally, not on floors, not like that. It wasn't powered. Just sitting there, unlit. I checked my inventory. None missing. I hadn't even crafted one in this world yet. I placed the painting back on the wall where it hung perfectly. No missing blocks, no bugs. I left the redstone torch in my offhand, thinking maybe it was just something I forgot about. A late night project or something from when I was half asleep, but I couldn't shake it. That sick little feeling in my stomach, like the kind you get when you realize a door you thought was locked has been open the whole time. The next day, I tried to shrug it off. Cut some wood, fished in the river, replanted the sugarcane. Normal things, mundane things. But when night fell again, I realized the footsteps weren't a one-time thing, because this time I heard the front door creak. Now let me be clear, I always close the door, always. That's not a superstition thing, it's habit. I don't even sleep well if I don't see the latch animation click shut, but at 2:57 a.m. I heard it. Creak, click, like someone pushed it open and gently closed it behind them. I froze. Again, this time I didn't wait. I jumped up, sword in hand, sprinted through the hallway, past the brewing stand, over the rug, and yanked the door wide open. No one was there, just the moon, hanging low behind the trees. A fox darted across the field. My wheat farm stood untouched, gently swaying in the breeze. I walked outside, spun around. Nothing until I turned back toward the house and saw it. On the door, right in the center block, a sign. It hadn't been there before. I didn't place it. And it read, in perfect all uppercase Minecraft text, "You left the light on." I stood there for what felt like forever. The cold air wrapping around me like the void itself. My breath, visible, pixelated, hung in the night. The sign didn't vanish. It wasn't a glitch. It was real. I broke it immediately, picked it up, checked the name tag, no player name, just sign. But I knew the truth. Someone had been here. Someone or something had not only opened the door but placed a message. A message that, no matter how simple it seemed, felt personal. You left the light on. I scanned the tree line with my spyglass. Nothing. No movement, no armor glint, not even a wolf. I went back inside, triple checked that my game was still on single player, paused the world, and just sat at the main menu for a bit. Was I going insane? I've played Minecraft since I was 12. I've seen it all: glitches, cursed seeds, Herobrine clickbait. This wasn't that. This wasn't some YouTube prank. This was my world, my build, my story. And someone was writing in it with me. That morning, I opened my logs folder, checked the files. Nothing unusual. No player joins, no strange ticks, no commands entered. The game didn't even register a door being open. And yet, it was opened. That day, I didn't mine, didn't explore. I just fortified. I added pressure plates, built a secondary wall around the cabin, set up a simple tripwire alarm system near the porch. It wouldn't catch a ghost, but it made me feel like I had some control. Night came again. This time, I stayed up. I didn't sleep in the bed, just sat in the corner by the fireplace, crouched behind the armchair with a bow drawn and volume maxed. At 3:14 a.m., I heard it again. Tap, tap, tap. But this time, it wasn't upstairs. It was inside the walls. Not the outer walls, the inner ones, between the bookshelves, inside the chimney shaft. A faint tapping, not like footsteps, more like fingernails on wood. I stared at the fire, unmoving, listening. The tapping stopped. Then, a second noise. Scrape, like stone dragging across stone. I leapt up and ran to the back room, where I kept my storage barrels and backup gear. Everything was untouched except for the floor. One of the mossy cobblestone blocks had shifted half a pixel out of place. Not broken, not mined, just moved. I tried to break it, wouldn't let me. I placed another block next to it, then broke that one that worked. But the shifted block remained frozen, stubborn. So I did what I always do when something doesn't make sense in Minecraft. I dug down. I dug straight down beneath the mossy cobblestone, careful, torch in my offhand, water bucket ready. At Y level 69, the block finally broke, just crumbled like a normal one. But below it, air, a single block-wide tunnel, pitch black, perfectly carved, not natural, not cave general, not mineshaft. It went straight down for maybe 10 blocks, then leveled out into a tight corridor. No torches, no mobs, just silence and stone. And the weirdest part, the entire tunnel was lined with smooth basalt, a block I'd never brought into this world. I dropped the torch in. Nothing lit up, not even particle effects, just black. I dropped in anyway, landed safe. The moment my feet touched the basalt, the torch in my hand blinked out, not dropped extinguished. My hotbar flickered like a UI bug. But then I saw something ahead. At the end of the hallway, a door, just a single oak door placed right into the basalt wall, closed. I approached carefully. No sounds, no signs, just that same quiet tension like the whole game was holding its breath. I hovered over the handle, waited, then opened it. The room beyond was empty. Not just empty clean, completely cleared out. A perfect 5x5 room with smooth stone walls, a polished black stone floor, and a single item frame on the back wall. Inside the frame, a clock. And it was spinning wildly, the hands whipping around as if the sun and moon were flickering back and forth 1,000 times a second. I stepped closer. The moment I crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind me. I turned fast, bow drawn, but there was no one there. The door was gone, replaced by another wall. No exit. Only the clock on the wall, still spinning. And then the game stuttered. Just for a second. A brief lag spike. But this wasn't your normal frame drop. The whole screen shivered like someone had grabbed the world and shook it. My health bar flickered. My hotbar vanished. And a chat message appeared. One I didn't type. You should have stayed asleep. I stood there, frozen, staring at the words. No username, no system prefix. Just clean, white text floating at the top of the screen like it was watching me. I tried logging out. Nothing happened. Paused. Menu wouldn't open. I was locked in. The clock on the wall finally stopped spinning. It landed on 3:33 a.m. And then the entire room went black. Like a power cut in-game. The only thing I could see was a single line of glowing redstone dust forming on the floor in front of me like it had been placed 1 pixel at a time. The redstone dust pulsed softly in the dark like it was alive, breathing. I couldn't move, not because the game froze, but because I didn't want to. My hand hovered over the keyboard, heart racing. The line of redstone curved, turned, then looped around itself in a tight spiral on the floor. I squinted. It wasn't random. It was forming something. A symbol. A circle with a line through it. I'd seen that before in old Herobrine stories, in glitch thumbnails. It was a placeholder texture used in older versions of the game, corrupted, unreadable. But I was on the latest version, no resource packs, no mods. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the redstone vanished. Not broke, vanished, and the room lit back up. But it wasn't the same room anymore. The stone was gone. The basalt, the item frame, the clock, all gone. Now I was standing in my cabin again. Same rug, same fireplace, but it was off. Unlit, cold. I turned slowly. The front door was wide open. Outside, nothing. No trees, no stars, just endless gray fog. Like the void had swallowed my seed. I walked to the doorway, placed a torch. It didn't light. I walked a few blocks out. The cabin vanished behind me like it had never been there. I turned back. Stone wall. Flat, empty stone wall. I wasn't in my world anymore. I wasn't anywhere. Until a voice whispered barely audible through my headphones. You woke up too early. Then white screen. And I was back at the Minecraft title screen. No crash. No error. Just reset. I loaded into the world again. Spawned on a dirt block. In the middle of the ocean. No cabin. No builds. No items. No spawn point. The seed was the same. The file name was the same. But it wasn't my world anymore. I paused. Went into my .minecraft saves folder. The world file was still there. But the size? 0 kilobytes. Completely empty. I launched the game again. Created a new world. Different name. Different seed. I spawned in a spruce forest. It looked normal. Until I turned around and saw it. My cabin. Exactly as I'd built it. Lantern in the window. But the sign on the door had changed. It read, "Welcome back. Try to stay asleep this time." I didn't touch the door. Not right away. I circled the cabin first, slowly, like it was a wild animal I didn't want to spook. Everything looked right, the logs, the cobblestone chimney, the small garden patch out back. Even the half-built fishing dock I started weeks ago was there, unfinished. but it didn't feel right. There were no ambient sounds, no chickens, no wind, not even the subtle hum of the world. Just silence. I finally stepped onto the porch and opened the door. It creaked, same as always. The hinges were still one tick off from center, a flaw I always meant to fix. The rug was there, the red one with the darker patch in the middle from where I once spilled a potion. The item frame above the bed still held my enchanted sword. But then I noticed something that stopped me cold. Above the fireplace, the painting, the one that fell, it was back on the wall. But now, the figure in the painting was different. He was facing forward. In the original version, the figure in the painting stood with his back turned, looking toward the moon. I liked it mysterious, peaceful, but now he was facing outward, right at me, and his eyes glowed faintly white. I went up to inspect it, tried to interact, maybe break it, but I couldn't. My hand wouldn't place the cursor. It was like the hitbox was gone, like it was no longer considered a painting. I stepped back, Saturday on the edge of the bed, and just stared. Minutes passed. I didn't move, didn't speak. I was afraid the game would respond if I did. And then the chat opened again by itself. Cabin, you're doing better this time. The name tag wasn't mine. It wasn't blank either. It said, cabin, like the cabin itself was speaking. I closed chat, saved and quit. I needed a break, just for a second. Maybe the game was corrupted. Maybe I'd done something to trigger this, a seed bug or an Easter egg I'd never heard of. But when I went to reopen the game, it had renamed itself. Instead of Minecraft, the title screen now read, Cabin Mode, Entry in Progress. There were no buttons, no menu, just one option. Continue confession. I clicked it. There was no loading screen. I was back in the cabin. But now it was raining outside, a soft, pixelated drizzle, with no sound. I walked to the window. The fog was still there, but it had parted slightly, just enough for me to see the tree line again. And there, deep in the trees, stood a figure. Too far to see clearly, no name tag, no armor. Just stillness. I turned away for a second to grab my spyglass. When I turned back, they were closer. Much closer, right at the edge of the lantern light. I couldn't see their face, but they were holding a redstone torch. The redstone torch glowed faintly, that deep, unsettling red that flickers just enough to make you question if it's pulsing. The figure didn't move, didn't wave, didn't glitch or despawn. They just stood there, torch in hand, half shrouded in mist, staring at the cabin. I backed away from the window. No sound, no footsteps, not even rain hitting the roof anymore. I crept to the door and checked the latch still locked, but that didn't comfort me. I sat back in the corner of the room beside the bookshelf, eyes fixed on the door like it might open on its own. I waited. 10 minutes passed, maybe 15. Then, a knock. Knock, just one. Not from the door. From the upstairs loft. The same place I heard the footsteps the first night. I didn't move, just stared up the ladder, heart pounding loud enough to drown out the rain. Knock, again, 3 seconds later, deliberate. I climbed, step by step, sword in hand. At the top, I peeked over the edge, expecting to see something, anything, but it was empty, until I turned and looked at the floorboards. Someone had placed a book, no title, just a plain, dark red journal lying open. I clicked it. Inside was a single line of text, written in the game's default font, no author. You are remembering it wrong. I exited the book and looked up. The painting was gone, and in its place was a second door. Right on the loft wall. I hadn't built that. The door was made of warped planks, the kind you can only find in the nether, but no particles shimmered from it. It didn't hum or glow or creak. It was just there. I stared at it for a long time. Then I opened it. It led to another hallway, tight, dark, Stone bricks, mossy and cracked. A single lantern hanging from the ceiling flickered dimly, casting jittery shadows across the walls. I stepped in and closed the door behind me. The hallway went straight, then curved slightly to the left. As I rounded the bend, the chat opened again. Cabin, this part won't make sense at first. I turned the corner and stopped cold. There, carved into the wall in obsidian blocks, were words. Confession number 0, the first dream. Underneath it, a chest. I opened it. Inside were 6 books, all signed by me. I don't remember writing them. Each book had a date different times across the past year, but they didn't match real-world dates or save file logs. And when I opened the first one, my stomach dropped. It was a retelling of the first night I'd ever played Minecraft. The day I spawned in a snowy biome, punched a tree, dug a hole in a hill, and called it home. But there were parts I never remember doing, descriptions I would have never written. Like how I found a broken nether portal with crying obsidian glowing dimly before I even crafted my first pickaxe. Or how I supposedly heard whispering every time I looked at the moon. I opened the second book. It was a confession, one I'd never written. It read, "Sometimes I dream the world before I build it, and then I wake up and it's already there." I closed the book, backed out of the chest, and heard the door shut behind me. I spun around. The warp door was gone again, replaced with more mossy stone bricks, perfectly seamless. No cracks, no gaps. It was as if the hallway had never led anywhere else. I was trapped. Only one way forward now. The lantern ahead flickered violently and then burst a soundless pop of particles and sparks, leaving me in near total darkness. I placed a torch, but it gave off no light, just a faint glow in my hand. I walked further down the corridor, each step echoing strangely, like the hallway wasn't built in the overworld anymore, but inside something deeper, older. At the end, I saw another painting. This one wasn't on a wall. It floated, suspended in midair. The canvas twisted slowly, like it was caught in invisible wind. As I approached, it spun to face me. The image was me, standing in the cabin, looking at a painting of myself, and behind me in the painting was a figure in the window. I stepped back, nearly tripping on the uneven floor. The painting didn't follow me, it just stayed there, swaying gently, locked in its impossible float. The figure behind me in the image, I recognized the silhouette, the same one from the woods, the same one that held the redstone torch. Only this time, he wasn't holding it anymore. He was pointing directly at the version of me in the painting. I reached out and broke the canvas. It didn't drop. Instead, the chat opened again. "Cabin, you shouldn't have done that." The walls around me began to crumble, not explode, crumble, as if time had finally caught up with this place. Particles drifted downward, chunks vanished. The void opened beneath my feet. I didn't fall. I floated, weightless, until I heard the sound. A sound I hadn't heard since my earliest days of playing this game. The menu music, as if the world itself was about to log me out, but it didn't fade to black. Instead, I found myself back in the cabin. Only now, everything was mirrored. Left was right. Right was left. The chest was on the opposite side of the room. The rug's darker patch was flipped. Even the compass on the item frame pointed south instead of north. I opened the door and stepped outside. The forest was gone. Now there was only snow, an endless field of it, stretching as far as render distance allowed. And in the middle of that frozen silence, a structure stood. It looked like the cabin, but broken, half buried in snow, windows shattered, lanterns dark, the roof caved in. I walked toward it, and when I opened its door, a new sign greeted me. Confession number 2. You wrote this. I stepped inside, and there was only one thing. A mirror, standing tall, facing me, and in the reflection, I wasn't alone. There was someone standing just behind me in the mirror. I spun around, nothing. Turned back, still there. A tall figure, not quite Steve, not quite Enderman, just a blurry humanoid shape with glowing white eyes, the kind that don't blink, the kind that don't move unless you look away. I stared at the mirror, refused to blink. The game stuttered again. Chat opened. Cabin. If you turn around again, you'll forget. Cabin. Are you ready to forget? I didn't respond. The mirror flickered. My reflection vanished. Only the figure remained, standing alone where I had been. Then the mirror cracked, spider webbing down the center, and the room fell into darkness again. Not in-game darkness, just blackness. And the only sound I could hear was my own heartbeat. Except it wasn't mine. It was too slow, too deep, too hollow. When the screen finally faded back in, I was lying in bed. In the cabin, just like the start, the fire was crackling again. The lantern by the window glowed softly, casting that familiar golden hue across the floor. Everything looked normal, but the longer I sat up and looked around, the more I noticed what was missing. My sword wasn't in the item frame. The rug was gone. The painting was just a blank canvas. And in the upper right corner of the screen where the coordinates should have been, there was just one line of white text. Stay asleep. I opened my inventory. Empty. No items. No armor. Just a book and quill. It was already open, like someone had clicked it for me. And the message inside? Just 3 words. This is home. I walked outside, slowly. The snow was gone now. The forest was back. Spruce trees stretching up into a gray, overcast sky. Rain fell gently, but only visually. No sound accompanied it. Off in the distance, smoke rose from a second cabin, one I hadn't built. I stared at it for a long time. It sat beyond the frozen river, identical in shape, same chimney, same lantern on the porch. I crossed the river. The water didn't ripple, didn't push me back, just let me walk across like it was solid. When I reached the porch, there was no door, only another sign. You're not the only one. I stepped inside. There was no furniture, no crafting table, no chest, just a single player head on the floor, labeled Entry 33. I hadn't made 33 entries. Not yet. But apparently, I would. I picked up the player head and inspected it. No name, but when I hovered over it, the tooltip flickered between 2 tags. Player, Echo, Confession, Incomplete. I'd never named myself Echo in this world. Never written that anywhere. But something deep inside me recognized it. The name felt correct. I dropped the head back onto the floor and left the cabin. Back across the river, back to mine. When I returned, my cabin door was open. Inside, everything had returned to how it was. Rug, painting, fireplace, sword in the frame, except the painting now had 2 figures. One sitting by the fire, the other standing outside the window, watching, always watching. I closed the door, locked it, Saturday back in the chair beside the fireplace. And that's when I heard the knock again. This time, not from the loft, not from inside the walls, from below, from the floorboards, just beneath my feet. Knock, knock, slow, rhythmic, familiar. I didn't get up. I didn't grab my sword. I just sat still, listening, eyes on the fire, heart thudding in time with the sound. And then, in the firelight, I saw just for a second, a flicker in the flames. Not particles, not ember animations, a figure, standing in the fire, looking back at me, not burning, just waiting. The figure didn't move, just stood motionless in the heart of the fire as if the flames were a window, not a blaze. His silhouette shimmered faintly, defined only by the glow licking at the edges of his form. His eyes, white and dull, were the only features that never shifted. Focused, aware, I blinked, gone, just the fire again, crackling harmlessly against the stone. I stood slowly, unsure if I'd imagined it, walked to the fireplace, held my hand near the flame. No heat. I stepped back, opened chat, typed, seed, no response. Tried again, locate structure stronghold, still nothing. Then the chat responded, but with something I didn't write. Cabin, commands don't work here. Cabin, you built this place, you just forgot. I closed chat, opened the pause menu. It flickered once, then collapsed. No save and quit. No settings. Just confession in progress. I took a deep breath and turned around. Looked at the room carefully. Something was different again. The bookshelf near the bed was now cracked open like a secret door. Behind it, a tunnel I didn't remember carving. No lights, no particles, just void, black stone, basalt, the same as before. I hesitated, then stepped through. The tunnel curved down slowly, gently, like it was drawing me deeper into memory. I followed the curve until the world around me turned blue, not sky blue, but memory blue, the kind of shade you see behind closed eyes. Then the tunnel ended at a small room. No mobs, no furniture, just a table. On it, a single map. The map was already explored, fully uncovered, but what it showed made no sense. The terrain was a blend of overworld biomes, jungle bleeding into ice spikes, deserts beside lush caves, floating islands above bedrock plains. And in the center, the cabin, my cabin, but there were more of them. Dozens, each one marked with a number. Cabin 1, Cabin 2, Cabin 3, Cabin 44, Cabin 107, Cabin 998. I zoomed in. Each one was identical. Same shape, same layout, same coordinates. Just layered across different map chunks, as if someone had copy-pasted my base over and over again across worlds I never created. But one stood out. It was marked in red text. Cabin 0. I clicked it. The screen froze, and then it loaded. I was no longer in the overworld. The terrain was void black, no sky, no ground. The only thing that existed was a single floating platform made of deep slate tiles, and at the center of it, a single chest. I walked to it, opened it. Inside were 10 books, all blank, but when I hovered over one, a tooltip appeared. Confession draft, do not share. I clicked it, and suddenly I wasn't in the void anymore. I was sitting in the cabin. Same rug, same fire, same lantern light. And my player was writing, typing into a book and quill at the desk, but I wasn't controlling it. The words filled in on their own. Cabin, confession number 1. If you're hearing this, it means the fire is still burning. I watched as the journal wrote itself, line by line, repeating everything I'd already lived. Every footstep, every redstone torch, every knock. It was documenting me not like a memory, but like a script. Like all of this had already been written. The quill scratched out the final line, and my player was writing, and then stopped. I didn't press anything, didn't move the mouse, but the character me stood up on its own, turned toward the fireplace, walked to it, and said out loud, "It always ends here." The screen went dark. The world loaded again. But now the screen had a border, like an old CRT television, curved edges, faint scan lines. My cabin looked the same, everything in place, but the game had changed. Colors were muted, lighting flickered unnaturally. When I opened the door this time, the sky was blank white, like overexposed paper. No clouds, no Sunday, just emptiness. And at the edge of the porch sat a book. Not in a chest, not floating, just resting on the wood. I picked it up. The title was Confession Number 1 in Progress. And inside, stop reading this and leave. That was the only sentence. Repeated on every page. Until page 10, which simply said, "You've already stayed too long." I closed the book, turned to go back inside, but the door was gone. In its place, a flat wall of smooth quartz blocks. No seams, no button, no redstone. Just white. I looked around. The cabin was isolated again. No river, no trees, just white terrain in all directions. I checked my inventory. Now there were 3 items. A redstone torch, a written book titled Confession, and a name tag labeled Echo. When I hovered over the name tag, a whisper played. Not a game sound. A real whisper. Soft, breathy, barely audible. "Don't wake up." And then boom, a lightning strike hit directly in front of me. The terrain flashed red for a moment, and the cabin reappeared. But this time, it was burning. Flames licked at the windows. Smoke poured from the roof, but there was no heat, no damage ticker, no fire spread. It wasn't real. It was like the fire was performing. I ran inside anyway. The interior was untouched. Still, silent, except the painting was moving again. The figure inside it paced back and forth, never looking out, never facing me. I typed in chat, "Tell Echo, where are you?" Response came instantly. "Echo, still inside." I asked, "Who is Echo?" Nothing. Then another message appeared on its own. "Cabin, you are." I sat in the chair by the fire again. The same position as always. This time, there was a bell sound deep and echoing. Not like the Minecraft bell. Like a church bell tolling from deep underground. 1, 2, 3, then silence. The painting on the wall finally stopped moving. The figure froze. Facing the window now, facing me. But it didn't have a face. Just a void where the eyes should be. And a faint glow from its chest like a lantern burning from the inside. I blinked, and suddenly, I was standing outside the cabin again. Everything reset. The fire was lit. The door was closed. And a new sign hung outside. Confession number 2, coming soon. I stepped back, heart heavy. The message on the sign, it felt final. Not a teaser, not a title, a warning. Confession number 2, coming soon. Like whatever I just lived through, whatever I recorded, or dreamed, or remembered wasn't the end. Just the first layer. I turned around, trying to see where I'd come from. The white void, the mirrored cabin, the burning sky, all of it was gone. Just trees now. Minecraft as it should be. Peaceful, ordinary, but I knew better. I knew that behind every spruce tree, every lantern-lit porch, every warm and cozy corner, something else watched. Waited, because this world wasn't mine anymore. Maybe it never was. Maybe it had always belonged to something else. Something that had just now started speaking. I walked back to the cabin. The sun was rising for the first time in what felt like forever. The lighting was soft. The world no longer glitched or flickered. I opened the door, Saturday down by the fire, and clicked save and quit. Back at the menu, the game looked normal again. Title, Minecraft. No more cabin mode. No more spinning clocks, no strange options, just single player, multiplayer, and options. I hovered over single player, paused, then opened my saves. My cabin world was still there. Same name, same timestamp, but the size? 33.3 megabyte. I smiled, just a little, because I understood now. I hadn't lived a dream. I had recorded a memory the world itself wanted told. So here I am, Recording this, not for fame, not for clicks, just for you. Because I need you to understand, if you ever spawn into a spruce forest and find a cabin that's already built, if the fire is already lit, if the lantern is glowing in the window and a redstone torch sits on the porch, don't go inside. Don't knock. Don't try to leave signs or open the book on the desk. Just log out, delete the world, because if you don't, you'll hear them, footsteps, in the loft, and they won't stop until you finish writing your confession. Just like I did, just like you will, and when you finally do, well, and that's the end of tonight's confession. The fire's burning low now, the forest is quiet again. But if you hear something in your own world, footsteps in the loft, or a door left open that you swore you closed, maybe you've been here longer than you thought. Confession number 2 is coming soon. Until then, sleep well. And remember, never leave the lantern off.